Joining us now is meteorologist and travel expert Cheryl Nelson. Cheryl, thanks so much for being with us on such a busy day leading into Christmas.
Yes, Markie, thanks for having me.
So there are lots of moving parts to this system, right? You got the snow, you have the ice, the wind. What part of the equation is worrying you the most right now?
Well, I don't like any of them, but if I had to pick one that is the worst, I would say, like Gerard did, it's going to be the wind. And we have to keep in mind that this storm system that we're dealing with is still rapidly intensifying. In fact, tonight, it's going to undergo what we call in meteorology bombogenesis, or bomb cyclone, as you might have heard before. This is when the pressure drops at least 1 millibar per hour for 24 hours. When this happens, the winds get wrapped tightly around that area of low pressure, and we start to get winds coming up on one side of it out of the southeast very strong out ahead of that cold front, pumping in warm air. On the back side of that low, we get the strong winds ushering in that very cold Arctic air mass. So this is going to affect a lot of real estate. When you have the wind, it's bringing in that cold air. That's going to cause any rain that has fallen in some areas along the East Coast flash freeze later tomorrow, and those roads could become icy and treacherous as we head into tomorrow night up and down the East Coast.
Yeah, lots of conditions working in tandem to keep us at home. Cheryl, as you know, this isn't just a ground problem. This is now also affecting flights across the country. We just heard Sloan's report from Chicago O'Hare, and people want to get home this weekend. Chicago area, for example, are people in this area going to get to their destinations in the next couple days?
I wish I could give a Christmas wish and say yes to everybody. But what's going to happen is we have to keep in mind for those folks in Chicago trying to get out, if they're heading east, the problem is moving in that direction. So if you're trying to get somewhere like Detroit or Buffalo, New York, DC, Boston, they're all going to be dealing with the wind and precipitation from this storm tomorrow. And we have to keep in mind, too, the threshold for these airliners to land. Each airplane has a threshold. So if the winds sustained at the surface are above a certain mile per hour, that plane cannot safely land. I've been in that situation before where they didn't cancel my flight. And I was thankful. I was flying from Atlanta to Norfolk International in Virginia. We were circling Norfolk International for about a good 30 minutes around midnight. Couldn't land. It was bumpy. And then finally the captain came on and said, well, folks, the winds at the surface are just too strong. 40 miles an hour. We cannot safely land. We're taking you back to Atlanta. So I ended up spending the night in Atlanta at the airport anyway. So keep in mind, when these flights get canceled, it's for your safety. Please be nice to your gate agents there. They're just trying to help.
Yeah,
everybody
agreed.
wants to get home for Christmas.
And icing, you mentioned all those conditions. Icing for planes, a serious risk that they have to take into account, too. Last question for you, Cheryl. A lot of people who needed to use these last couple of days for last-minute errands, a lot of Christmas shopping. What do you tell folks who still have a lot to get done but are also dealing with this deep freeze?
Now, procrastinators, you gotta love them. If you can, stay home. Don't go out unless you absolutely need to. Wait until any bad weather has passed your area. If you do have to go out, please have that emergency kit in your vehicle. You never know what you're going to need. Windshield washer fluid is a key, especially if you've had snow. There's still going to be blowing snow as well. If you have snow on top of your vehicle or ice, please brush it off because you don't want to throw flying projectiles and other vehicles around you and become a hazard on the roadway yourself. And finally, bundle up because on the East Coast tomorrow, temperatures might start out in the 50s to around 60 in some places. And then by this time tomorrow evening, drop down to around 20 degrees or colder. So yeah, you're going to see an intense temperature drop. Be ready and be prepared tomorrow. You don't want to be caught off guard in your car wearing short sleeves and no socks.
Yeah. Cheryl Nelson, thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you and yours, and thank you for all the tips this afternoon.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Well, a lot more to